Today we're going to be talking about the healer class and how to build the best set for you. But before I start this video, I just want to let you guys know that I am giving away one of these cute elephants on my head from the Essentials mod. All you have to do is like the video and comment a helpful dungeon tip and your IGN. Anyways, let's talk about the healer class. The healer class is a tricky one because building a setup for it depends on a lot of things. Do you want to focus on damage or effective HP? The actual goal of a healer is to, well, heal the team. So the only way to heal your team is if you are alive. So building a healer with high effective HP is usually the route taken by lower catacomb players to support the team. Therefore, I will be focusing on effective HP builds, but just remember that you can build it whatever way you want. I have a playlist with all of the classes, so check those out for more information. Alright, let's not waste any time and start with the armor. For the armor, I will be mentioning different armor setups depending on what point of the game you're in. The first armor is Strong Dragon and Superior Dragon armor undungeonized. Since you are getting into dungeons, you will not be able to just use any dungeon armor because it will require a certain catacomb level. Therefore, you can use this to get started, or at least any other non-dungeon armor as long as you can reach catacomb 2. Just want to mention though that you do not need a catacomb requirement to use the dungeonized dragon armor due to a bug, so you can use that for as long as you can survive. The second armor set is 3/4 Titanic Rotten armor with Titanic Heavy Chestplate, which has a catacomb 2 requirement. This armor gives you an okay amount of damage and effective HP for people who are just getting started. The third armor set is Super Heavy armor, which has a catacomb 15 requirement. This armor is the upgraded version of the heavy armor, which clearly means it is better. Just like the heavy armor, it gives you 1 walk speed for every 50 defense. If you want a cheap set that gives you an okay defense for early mid-game dungeons, you can possibly use this, or at least some pieces of it. You can also replace the helmet with the Mender helmet or Mender fedora. The fourth set is Legendary Zombie Soldier armor, which has a catacomb 9 requirement. This set is also another effective HP set that is decent. Compared to the super heavy, this one actually gives you HP, so you would not be as squishy to mobs that do true damage. You can also use the Mender helmet or fedora, but you would lose Zombie Soldier full set bonus if that is important for you. The fifth set is Old Armor Dungeonized, which has a catacomb 15 requirement but can be used without the requirement due to a bug. This armor is only viable when it is dungeonized, and what makes it usable is the full set bonus ability that increases your armor enchants. Overall, this setup can be used in mid-game and quite cheap for 5 stars since it uses Dragon Essence. There are some videos out there that show some tests if you want to learn more about them. You can either use this or the legendary super heavy, but this is better until you reach higher floors. The sixth set is Mender Fedora with 3/4 Necromancer Lord armor. This setup requires floor 6 completion for the Necromancer armor and catacomb 16 for the fedora. However, very good late game up to floor 6, it has really good effective HP and not only defense, making it decent against mobs that do true damage. You can however replace the Mender Fedora with Mender Crown, Reaper Mask, Zombie Heart, Crystallized Heart, or Revived Heart. The Mender Crown is the upgraded version of the Fedora but has a catacomb 28 requirement. The only one that's comparable to the Mender Crown is the Reaper Mask. Reaper Mask is actually better than the Mender Crown because it gives you more effective HP, a bit of intelligence, and has gemstone slots that can help you even more. The seventh set is Reaper Mask with tier 12 perfect chestplate and 2/4 Necromancer Lord armor. This is similar to the previous armor set that we mentioned, but you replace the chestplate with something cheaper, which is the tier 12 perfect chestplate. Since the perfect chestplate requires diamond essence, it's cheaper to 5 star. The two main issues are that, for one, it heavily focuses on defense, making it give you less effective HP, and secondly, it requires catacomb 21 to use. This could be easily fixed by using a lower tier perfect chestplate or even just using a super heavy chestplate temporarily until upgrading to something better. The eighth set is Reaper Mask with 3/4 Golder armor. This armor set gives an insane amount of effective HP and reduces damage you take from withers, which is helpful inside floor 7 boss room. Overall, it's the best armor setup for effective HP, and comboing it with the Reaper Mask you can get good regen. Finally, the last set. You might be wondering, if I showed you the best set, what else is there? Well, it is using Reaper Mask with 3/4 Wither armor. I do know that it is obviously worth it to just upgrade from Wither to Golder because it costs barely anything. However, in case you cannot afford that for some reason, you have the option to use this. Just keep in mind that for some reason the Wither leggings, the Golder leggings, and the Necromancer Lord leggings give the same amount of HP and defense, so you can save up by upgrading it last. And that's it for the armor setup. Just remember that you can go different routes for healer, so if you want damage or mage setup, watch my mage or berserker guides on it. Anyways, you might be wondering, what Reforge and ultimate enchant should I use? For the armor Reforges, you put Giant for effective HP, and if you cannot afford it, you have Titanic. And if you're building a damage healer setup, you can put Ancient. If you're building a mage healer setup, you put Necrotic on all and Loving on the chestplate. For ultimate enchant, you have two options, Legion and Last Stand. Legion increases your stats and Last Stand increases your defense by a percentage when you're below 40% health. Clearly the Legion is better, but for those having surviving issues, Last Stand works too. If Legion 5 is too expensive, Legion 3 also works. Okay, so let's move on to pets now. Finding the best pet for you can be difficult, but hopefully I'll help you decide. The first pet is Turtle. Turtle pet increases your defense by a percentage of your defense, and also regens your health per second slightly if you're near water. This is a decent pet for mid-game right now if you have an epic one. However, keep in mind that this pet is currently reworked on the alpha servers and actually buffed the defense and a new legendary perk, but those changes are not final. If it is the way it shows, Turtle has a high chance of being comparable to Blue Whale. More about it soon. The second pet is Jellyfish. Jellyfish pet increases your base health regen and heals people around you. Just overall buffs your healing. This pet does give you really good regen, which could be helpful in some cases, but effective HP pets are better. Although, if the changes do happen from the alpha servers as well, it becomes more helpful. It actually becomes more healer focused and will be helpful for your team even more. The third and fourth pets are Baby Yeti and Blue Whale. Baby Yeti gives you strength and intelligence as base stats and has the ability to give you defense depending on your strength. While Blue Whale gives a good amount of health and defense because of the ability that gives you 3 defense for every 20 HP. Both are effective HP pets, but the Blue Whale is better. However, those two pets were also reworked on the alpha servers, so if these nerfs do come out, Blue Whale is still better than the Baby Yeti, but Turtle seems to be very close to Blue Whale. Once the update comes out, I'll post more information in the comment section. Let's move on to pet items. There are so many pet items and honestly it all comes down to preference. But here are the ones I recommend. Spooky Cupcake for additional 30 strength and 20 speed. Cruchette Tiger Plushie for 35 attack speed. Minus Relic for increased pet stats by 33%, Dwarf Turtle Helmet for no knockback, and I guess if you want to go all out, you got the Hardened Scale or Reinforced Scale for more defense. The Minus Relic might not be the best option since for one, it's very expensive and not that good. Most people end up using the Helmet because the no knockback is so beneficial in dungeons. Anyways, let's talk about the weapons now. The weapons I'll be mentioning are Aspect of the Dragon, Zombie Soldier Cutlass, Fell Sword, Adaptive Blade, Flower Truth, Livid Dagger, Soul Whip, Shadow Fury, Giant Sword, Estrella, Terminator, and Juju's Shortbow. The first weapon is Aspect of the Dragon. The undungeonized version of this weapon is usually used for the first time dungeon players, and if you want to dungeonize it, it is quite good for early game, but there are better weapons. The second weapon is Zombie Soldier Cutlass, which has a Catacomb 5 requirement. This weapon is good for early game because it is very cheap. Does an okay amount of damage and gives 100 attack speed, which is useful. Shouldn't be used for too long though. The third weapon is Fell Sword, which has a Catacomb 20 requirement. This weapon was specifically added to the healer class because it buffs healing circle and reduces wish cooldown, making it helpful for your team as a whole. In terms of damage though, it's not the best. It is still good, somewhat cheap, and can get you to mid-game floors though. The fourth weapon is Adaptive Blade, which requires floor 2 completion. This weapon is a decent early to mid-game weapon, something to use before the Flower Truth or Livid Dagger if you cannot afford it. Which brings us to the fifth weapon, which is the Flower Truth. This weapon does a good amount of damage and very good for clearing with the ability where it shoots a rose that ricochets between 3 enemies. The sixth weapon is Livid Dagger. This weapon is probably the most used weapon because of how good it is for the DPS and has full attack speed. If you compare this to the Flower Truth, it does more melee damage, but the downside of this is that it is worse for clearing. You can always combo both weapons, one to clear and one to DPS. The seventh weapon is Soul Whip. Soul Whip is similar to the Flower Truth in terms of clearing. It casts a whip, dealing damage to everything it hits. It does a surprisingly decent amount of damage, requires no mana, and can lifesteal while constantly spamming the ability. If you look at the Flower Truth, it takes 10% of your max mana each time you use it. Which means even if you do have a lot of mana, it doesn't matter. You'll always run out of mana while clearing. At least that has been my experience with the Flower Truth. But I would say Livid Dagger is still better DPS, so this is mostly used for clearing. The 8th weapon is Shadow Fury. This weapon has an ability to rapidly teleport to 5 enemies and hit them. This weapon has started quite a bit of a debate because it is better than Livid Dagger in terms of damage, but Livid Dagger does more damage per second because of its attack speed. However, if you compare attack speed Talisman Shadow Fury with Shaded Talisman's Livid Dagger, it is not even close to how much more damage Shadow Fury deals. So overall, the Shadow Fury is better than the Livid Dagger with the correct Reforges, but if you're looking for something cheaper and still really good, you can use the Livid Dagger. The 9th weapon is Giant Sword. This weapon is very known because if used with the One For All enchant, it is really good. However, in the alpha servers as well, they are nerfing One For All, but it's still a good weapon. Also keep in mind it is worth a lot of money right now, so it might not be worth it for this upgrade. The 10th weapon is Astrea. This weapon is probably the best and most used tanking weapon because of its amazing damage and increases your defense. Although it is very expensive, if you don't have enough mana, it will be harder to use the Wither Impact to clear the room. Therefore, a secondary weapon, probably like the Terminator or the short bow, could be helpful. Usually this issue only happens in Master Mode though. And speaking of, the next weapon is Juju's Shortbow. This bow is widely used weapon because of how fast it shoots and how much damage it does. Overall, it's a good budget weapon for clearing while still doing decent amount of damage. The final weapon is Terminator. This is the upgraded version of the Juju Shortbow and is pretty much the best weapon for Master Mode. Amazing for clearing and does an insane amount of damage, although it does cost 1 billion coins. Anyways, that sums up the weapons. Hopefully I was able to help you decide on which one to use. Now for its Reforges. If you are using the Astrea or Scylla, use the Suspicious Reforge. And if you're using any of the melee weapons like Livid Dagger and Flower Truth, use Fabled. With it also works, but Fabled is better. Next up we have the helpful items. The first and most important item is Ice Spray. This weapon is expensive, but it's actually really helpful for killing fast mobs like Shadow Assassins because it has an ability where it freezes mobs for 5 seconds, giving you time to do as much damage as possible. The second item is the Wand of Atonement. This one heals you for 170 HP per second for 7 seconds. If it's too expensive, you can use the downgraded ones as well. The third item is Florid or Ornate Zombie Sword. The Florid Zombie Sword is the upgraded version of the Ornate Sword and has a good healing ability where it heals you for 168 HP plus 5% of your total health. The fourth item is Plasma Flux, Overflux or Mana Flux. The Plasma Flux is the upgraded version of the Overflux and they all give you more strength and increases your regen. The fifth item is Gloomblock Grimoire. This item has an ability where it heals you for 40% with overflow mana. Personally, this item is better than the Florid Zombie Sword, but it is quite expensive, so if you find Florid to be good enough, there is no need to upgrade. Just remember that it consumes a lot of soul flow over time and lowers your damage after you use it. The sixth item is Gyro Wand. This item has 2 abilities. The left click ability creates a rift at the targeted locations, 8 blocks in radius, and all mobs in the rift gets pulled to the center for 4 seconds. The right click ability applies the aligned effect to 4 nearby players and yourself for 6 seconds. What aligned does is that it splits incoming damage evenly between all aligned players. Overall, this item is very helpful for killing mini bosses and clearing rooms with its left click ability. In addition, very helpful and necessary for Master Mode 6, but of course, mages won't be in Master Mode unless you're really high catacomb. The 7th item is Wither Cloak Sword. This weapon is mostly used for its ability where it spawns a veil around you, giving you immunity from all damage. This is probably the most underrated ability in the game. It is extremely helpful for blocking damage that you know is about to come, for example, when countering a Shadow Assassin. In addition, helpful for phase 3 of the floor 7 boss room when jumping on the lava. And that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys want to see the other class guides, there is a dedicated playlist for it. Also, I just want to let you guys know that I have a Discord server, so if you guys want to ask more questions about dungeon classes, meet new people, and participate in a bunch of giveaways, then the link will be in the description. Anyways, I will see you guys next time. Bye!